Now, following a decade of rapid urbanization and strong economic growth, Africa is going digital. While just 16% of the continent's 1 billion people are online, that picture is changing rapidly. For more now, I'm joined by Lohini Mudli. She's an associate principal at McKinsey Global Institute. Thank you so much for making the time to join us. Now, we often hear of the fairy tale story of Kenya. Outside of Kenya, what does the rest of the picture look like for the continent?
So it's interesting you pick up on Kenya because you know that is one of the leaders in terms of the digital transformation. But I think overall, even Kenya, you would say that we are still at the start of our digital revolution. So I think what we're starting to see, particularly in urban areas, we're starting to see this rapid adoption of the internet. We're starting to see what the potential could be. In fact, you know, when we did a survey of all major African cities last year, we found that 1 in 2 urban Africans are online today.
That is a phenomenal number. That's half the population, right, in the urban cities. Right. Let's look at an interesting concept that's come out of this report, which is an iGDP. Now, obviously, what is an iGDP, and how do African cities compare with their global counterparts?
So iGDP essentially is what we call the internet's contribution to GDP. Basically, it is all the goods and services that are being sold and consumed with regards to the internet. That includes, you know, private consumption, so everything from somebody going online to companies investing in the internet to government spending on the internet. The reason why we say we're just at the beginning of our digital transformation is because overall, the contribution of the internet to Africa's GDP currently sits at 1.1%.
Right.
Now, there's some variation. You see countries like Senegal are at 3.3%, Kenya is at 2.9%. But if you look at the developed countries, Sweden, etc., they're in the 5 to 6% region. So that already gives you an idea of the potential that we have.
Right. Speaking about potential, I mean, there's this interesting phrase that's being thrown around now, which is Kenya is the silicon savannah of the continent. Again, can you just break down this terminology and why are we so excited about Kenya being, you know, a replica of something that we see abroad?
So, you know, I don't think it's going to be a replica of what we see abroad, but I think what we're starting to see, and it's not just in Kenya, but across the board, a rapid wave of innovation that's happening.
Yeah.
That includes, you know, technology entrepreneurs who are starting up technology hubs, developing new concepts. And I think in general what you see is people are being inspired by what technology can do to address some of the long-standing challenges on the continent. So I think in that light, you see a wave of entrepreneurial activity happening in Kenya today, which is why it's called the Silicon Savannah.
Again, when we're speaking about leveraging off technology for developmental goals, how are we framing the two obvious sectors that usually stand out is leveraging off technology for health and education purposes. Have we been able to extend the gains that we've made there?
So I think, again, this is just something that's starting. I think that there are a lot of what I would call interesting experiments that are happening. Everything from, you know, applications that allow students to download cell phones on their stories on their cell phones so that they can get access to more literature, to low-cost models that are being developed to use technology to deliver private education at low cost to different students. But I don't think that we can, at this point, say, you know, we've captured those gains.
Right.
I think there's a hint as to what's to come. The question is, how do we build this into something that's more systemic?
I mean, Africa is often touted as having one of the highest penetration rates when it comes to mobile technology. Are we catching up when we look at other aspects of technology like broadband and using other devices other than our mobile phones?
So I think mobile gives us a very interesting parallel in terms of what's going to happen with the internet. If you think about mobile today, it was something that was, I would say, transformative rather than incremental.
Right.
So, you know, if you look at developed countries, they had the fixed line and they had mobile on top.
Yeah.
Africa basically has mobile, and that rapid adoption of mobile and that the impact on our GDP of mobile is outsized when you compare to the rest of the world. the same will happen with the
Lohini,
internet.
if we look at it from a policy point of view, are we finding that infrastructure that could accelerate this journey is at the top of government priorities?
So almost, we looked at 14 countries in the sample. Every single country has ICT and digitization as part of one of their core goals. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they've actually developed a coordinated strategy to really deliver on it, I think that's the remaining question. And I think, again, you look at countries like Senegal and Kenya that have managed to advance further than some of the other, I would say, even more developed countries on the continent. You see the important role that government can play in terms of coordinated policy and implementation.
And quickly before I let you go, of course, there's always the dual objective here. One is getting access, and the other one is also making sure that the price is affordable. Yeah. How are we comparing on that front?
So I think, in relative terms, it is still fairly expensive. I think, as more people come online, the prices will come down. But I don't think it's just a question of prices coming down. I think it's creating it in bite-sized chunks so people can afford to come online.
Let's look at some of the business opportunities that these developments throw up. I mean, let's look at the demographics of the continent first, which, with such a big youth population and a growing youth population, do you think that this is likely to absolutely revolutionize how the continent engages with retail and other parts of the market?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are a few demographic shifts that will help us in this journey. One is obviously the youth. So we have about 200 million Africans between the ages of 15 to 25. And that's the cohort of people that adopt technology. Yeah. So I think that will definitely.
One of the sectors that stood out for me as really interesting was agriculture. One doesn't usually in their head make an association between technology and agriculture. And yet we're seeing these two somewhat disparate things coming together. Talk us through about how is that even a possibility? Yeah.
So I think one is technology gives people access to information. So farmers get access to information about crops, about weather patterns, about fertilizers. It also gives them access to markets, and I think that's what you see with these commodity exchanges. So farmers know when to sell their product and at what price to sell their product, and so that they can increase the yield from their crops. And then I think lastly, it allows for certain micro products to be made available to farmers, things like insurance based on weather patterns, etc., so that it reduces the risk for farmers.
Lohini, thank you so much for joining us and sharing those interesting insights. Of course, that was Lohini Moodley. She's an associate principal at McKinsey Global Institute.